to Weekly World News on SpringNectar TV, brought to you by Vibha Ramesh, Los Angeles, United States. First, the top headlines. Senate discussions on infrastructure likely to stretch into weeks. Dangerous repercussions to follow the lifting of restrictions in UK, say scientists. Indonesia's COVID infection going above and beyond India and Brazil. Heavy floods in Germany, Merkel's take on climate crisis. Tension prevails between India and China. Rain cripples India's financial hub. Over to news in detail. Consensus on the United States Senate's talks on the infrastructure bill is expected to take more time, even though negotiators pushed for a test vote on Wednesday. Sources say talks would stretch into weeks considering the size and scale of the bill. A whopping $600 billion in new spending and the prevalent discord over how to pay for it are the two primary points of consideration that has kept the bipartisan talks from arriving at a consensus. In effect, Senate Majority Leader Schumer set up a Wednesday vote to advance the bill. However, on Wednesday, the vote to initiate debate in the $1.2 trillion bill was blocked by Senate Republicans. While it was required to secure 60 votes to advance the measure, the voting closed at 49-51 votes, leading to a standstill. That said, lawmakers are planning to intensify the negotiations over this week and make another attempt to advance the bill by next week, as Schumer said, "We all want the same thing here, to pass a bipartisan infrastructure bill, but in order to finish the bill, we first need to start." Meanwhile, the Biden administration has extended restrictions on non-essential travel, especially with Mexico and Canada, until August 21. That said, travel on medical grounds, cross-border trade, and U.S. citizens and permanent residents are exempt from the extension that went into effect on Thursday and will be in place until August 21, unless amended. Calling it another pivotal moment in this pandemic, health officials have warned of the sudden surge in COVID cases caused by the Delta variant. Although the guidance on mask requirements remain unchanged, CDC Director Rochelle Walensky said at a White House briefing, "It is one of the most infectious respiratory viruses we know of, and that I've seen in my 20-year career. The U.S. is not out of the woods." One more Trump supporter received a court sentence in connection to the Capitol riot case. To that extent, Paul Hopkins will serve 8 months in prison for obstructing an official proceeding following his breach of U.S. Senate chamber during the attack. Moving on, alarm bells were sounded by scientists and government advisors about the catastrophic repercussions of the decision to lift COVID restrictions in the UK. According to them, the move is a threat to the world. To this extent, nearly 1,200 scientists and government advisors in Israel, Italy, and others fear that the lifting of restrictions sets the ground for the emergence of newer vaccine-resistant variants of the virus. Astounded by the decision made by Boris Johnson, a New Zealand government advisor and professor of public health stated, "In New Zealand, we have always looked to the UK for leadership when it comes to scientific expertise, which is why it's so remarkable that it's not following even basic public health principles." The looming fears and lurking danger of the removal of all formal COVID restrictions triggered a sudden turn of events as Boris Johnson made vaccine passports compulsory. Consequently, he made an announcement that entry into nightclubs will be permitted only upon furnishing proof of being vaccinated. He said, "I should serve notice now that by the end of September, when all over 18s will have had their chance to be double jabbed, we're planning to make full vaccination the condition of entry to nightclubs and other venues where large crowds gather." Meanwhile, data has it that yet another 96 people succumbed to the virus on Tuesday, just 28 days after testing positive. This remains the highest single-day death toll since March 24. Over to Brexit, an attempt to rewrite the Northern Ireland Brexit Protocol is in progress as the Brexit minister deems it right to invoke Article 16 provision, thereby facilitating the UK or the European Union to suspend part of the arrangements in dire circumstances. As remarked by Lord Frost, the difficulties we have in operating the Northern Ireland Protocol are now the main obstacle to building a relationship with the European Union. We concluded that it's not the right moment to do so. However, Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, disapproved Johnson's move to renegotiate the Northern Irish Protocol. In her words, as stated on Thursday, The European Union will continue to be creative and flexible within the protocol framework, but we will not renegotiate. Moving on to Germany, torrential rainfall has left the country in floods, causing pain and despair to hundreds of families. The floods have severed access to drinking water, gas, and electricity to several thousands of people in western Germany. And railway services were disrupted owing to the damage of over 80 stations and more than 600 kilometers of tracks. Moreover, with the shutting off of pipelines and control stations, which may take months to rebuild, people are holding on to a slim string of hope. According to sources, nearly 184 people were found dead, at least 670 injured, and over 155 people are still missing after a week of record rainfall, and rescuers may not find any more survivors. Commenting on the rescue operation, an official of the Federal Agency for Technical Relief said, "We're currently still searching for missed ones as we are cleaning debris or pumping out cellars. But sadly, at this stage, it is very likely that victims can only be recovered and not rescued." The ravaging floods had given yet another opportunity to address the climate crisis, and Chancellor Angela Merkel is on top of it. In her opinion, climate crisis played a vital role in the recent floods, and it's about time the country dealt with its impact. She said, "We have to up the pace in the fight against climate change." With just months to go before the end of her 16-year-old leadership of Germany, she reflected on her victories and missed opportunities at press conferences on Thursday. Inadequate addressing of the impact of climate crisis was one of the key points she spoke of. In her words, "I am equipped with sufficient sense for science to see that objective circumstances demand that we can't continue at the current pace, but have to up the tempo." While Germany alone could not change the world climate, the manner in which we do it can set an example that others follow. And in Indonesia, record-breaking single-day infections of COVID-19 are being reported as the country reels under the wrath of a severe outbreak. News has it that the country's record of daily COVID infections has gone past India and Brazil. Several regions in the country are showing a spike in infections, and hospitals are battling between admissions and supply of vital medical aid. While Malaysia is using shipping containers in place of morgues, Thailand has built field hospitals at 2 of its airports to address the overwhelming need for hospital beds. A quick look at the dashboard as of Thursday. 49,509 new cases and 1,449 deaths were reported, taking the overall tally to 3,082,410 infections and 80,598 deaths. That said, health experts are of the opinion that the statistics are an underestimate of the real numbers. As Dr. Dicky Budiman, an epidemiologist at Australia's Griffith University, remarked, "The center of the pandemic in Asia is already in Indonesia right now. But if we have more testing capacity, we're already the epicenter of the world. We miss many cases and we don't identify maybe 80% of these cases in the community. In Indonesia, the testing is passive, it's not active. The one who comes to the healthcare facility is the one who gets tested if they show symptoms or if they also identify as the contact," he said. This also brings out the fact that Indonesia has one of the weakest testing systems, with a mere 55.89 tests taken for every 1,000 people. Moving on, tension between India and China continues to prevail as talks between the two countries were marked with disagreement on several factors. A meeting to tackle the existing border aggressions was held on Wednesday and led by the foreign ministers of the two countries. The year-long standoff and building up of nearly 200,000 troops on either side of the Himalayan frontier was hoping to see light at the end of the tunnel. However, the only point of consensus they shared during the meeting was the fact that the relationship between the two countries was at a low point. Meanwhile, in Mumbai, heavy rains escalated into landslides, house collapse, and electrocutions. The showers started early Sunday morning, and within 24 hours, it led to at least 5 landslides at different parts of the city. The summited damage caused by the downpour and related incidents left 32 people dead and at least 6 injured. Prime Minister tweeted on the incident saying, "Saddened by the loss of lives due to wall collapses in Chembur and Vikhroli in Mumbai." Further, he also announced a monetary aid of Rs 5 lakhs to the families of the deceased and Rs 50,000 and free treatment for the injured. And news on the COVID front has it that the 7.5 million doses of the COVID vaccine Moderna that was offered to India has still not been delivered. Sources say that the delay of the COVID vaccine that was offered to India as part of the vaccine sharing program was due to a pending agreement on an indemnity clause. The government is actively working on resolving the issue, and the country's drug regulator has already granted authorization for the emergency use of Moderna in India. As of now, there isn't much information on when the shots would be made available for use in India. In another instance, officials stated that nearly 70% of the Indian population have antibodies against COVID. That leaves only one-third of the population vulnerable to the virus. As the Indian Council for Medical Research put it, the findings clearly shows that there is a ray of hope, but there is no room for complacency. We have to maintain COVID-appropriate behavior and community engagement. And in Brussels, long hunger strikes by migrants has put the government under pressure to provide residence permits. Several hundred migrants have been on a hunger strike for nearly 2 months now in a church in central Brussels. Despite their weakening health condition, their demand for legal access to the job market and social services is unwavering. Subsequently, the government has been requested to provide temporary residence permits by UN officials. As a UN rapporteur stated, the information we have received is alarming, and several of the hunger strikers are between life and death. News as of Thursday revealed that all of the 476 hunger strikers ended their strike and gave up their demand for a collective status regularization. They have been taken to a hospital for recovery, after which they will be moved to a neutral place from where they can individually apply for residence permit. Relieved by their suspension of the strike, Belgium's State Secretary for Asylum and Migration tweeted, "For me, it was not a fight against people, but for the correct policy. We hope that no one will have lasting injuries." With that, I bring you to the end of this week's news bulletin. I'll see you again next week with more world news on Spring Nectar TV. Thank you for watching.